I consider myself a Star Wars fan, although these days, that's a scary statement to make. Hell, my earliest memory was watching Empire Strikes Back on VHS on a little CRT. Back then, there were only the George Lucas films, and with that allowed for a plethora of Star Wars fan media with Lucas's stamp of approval. From novels, cartoons, that Ewok TV show. But one of the biggest things was video games. And since the 1980s up to today, they've been making a lot of Star Wars based games. I laid out a bunch of different franchises to look at in this series of Every Something Ever, and I thought, hell, why not just go for the big one? Why not just play every single Star Wars game ever made? There's no way that could be a taxing idea, right? Oh, God. This one took a while. This one took months. I'm gonna try and make this as consistent as I can. For one thing, when we get later down the line, we're gonna see multiple ports for games. And unless they are drastically different or just plain interesting, I'm gonna be putting my focus mainly on the flagship versions of these games. That doesn't mean I still won't check them out, they just probably won't get as much time or attention. Secondly, I will try to complete every game on this list. Doesn't mean I'm going to go for 100% runs on all of them, but if they have a final level or a boss, I'm going to try and work my ass off to getting there. Some of these games are structured differently, and some of them are just really long, so I'm going to make sure I put in at least an appropriate amount of time in every game, and I'm going to try and beat as many as I can. Thirdly, this is a big franchise with a lot of games. A lot. I'll mostly be using Wikipedia to help me out in hopes that I don't miss anything. This is a long list. First up, we have the 1980s, the time when kids still went to the arcades, but if you were cool, you probably had a home gaming system. The 1970s had its share of oddballs, but the most famous was the Atari 2600, from a time where you could have a controller with only a stick and a button.
In a galaxy of video games, there is only one, Star Wars, the arcade game.
And that's where our journey begins. 1982, the year between Empire and Jedi. And don't worry, this is not the last game to have this name either. I personally enjoy that Wikipedia states, like most Atari games, it is near impossible to win. Now, we'll just see about that. The entire game is basically the Walker scene on Hoth. Now, how do I move? Okay, well once I got that figured out, the game is pretty simple. It's a side-scroller where you play a snowspeeder shooting down AT-ATs. No tow cables or anything like that. It's classic Atari. You fly, you shoot, you die. A lot. I figured out a good strategy for this game once I learned I can actually spam the fire button. Yeah, get right behind them and start shooting their ass. According to the Wikipedia, you can win. I'm not quite sure how. I mean, I cleared all the walkers out at some point. To me, it seems like an arcade game where you just have to get the highest points you can. Well, that's about it for the very first Star Wars game, at least according to Wikipedia. On to the next. Next is Jedi Arena, released February of 1983. This is the game that I actually thought was the first Star Wars game. It has two lightsaber wielders facing off against one another, reflecting blast from the training droid of A New Hope onto each other. It's kind of like a bad version of Pong. Okay. I'll admit, once I figured out how the game worked, it got kind of addicting, actually. This game you can actually win by hitting your opponent 3 times, which according to the game will bump you up to Jedi Master. The goal is not only to deflect the training droid blast, but you can also shoot those blasts at your opponent. And the blasts aim the same direction that you aim your lightsaber, so it's kind of tricky. I eventually gave up on deflecting and just went full on offense. And after winning or losing a point, you switch sides and the controls are inverted. It gets quite nightmarish. But eventually, I did conquer the game. Next is the famous Star Wars arcade game. That was once one of the most popular video games ever made. Originally an arcade game by Atari, that was of course ported to multiple home consoles in 1983. This game recreates the Battle of Yavin, the climactic space battle to destroy the Death Star at the end of A New Hope. It's in first person and we control Luke Skywalker piloting his X-Wing. The arcade version actually had voice lines digitized from the movie, which was a first. And that was super exciting for people. To actually hear lines from their beloved characters in a game, isn't it crazy how standard that is for us now? But back in the 80s, that was a huge deal. This game is super addicting. I can see why it drew in so many crowds and ate so many quarters, or however much it cost back then. I'm just playing the console port. I can only imagine how much fun it was to sit in the cockpit-style cabinet playing this. Those vector graphics are just so glorious. You play through 3 stages. The first has you shooting TIE fighters, the second has you shooting towers, and the third is the trench run. And this all happens pretty fast. It doesn't take long to beat the game, but every time you beat it, it starts over on a higher difficulty. Honestly, I could see myself playing this game for hours, which is more than I can say for most Atari games. Damn near any of them, really. I would say that this is a must-have for your Atari collection. There were 2 more arcade games also made for the other films, but we'll get to those in a bit. Next up is Return of the Jedi, Death Star Battle, released towards the end of 1983. Now I gotta say, the art for this game slaps. That is cool as hell. This game, as you might have assumed from the title, has us playing as Lando flying the Millennium Falcon in the battle of the second Death Star. This game we can also actually beat by destroying the Death Star. This game is kinda like Space Invaders with extra steps. First stage, you can just sit around destroying Imperial ships for points if you want, or you could just go straight to the first opening and blow up the Death Star. Which is, it's a bit tedious the first couple tries as you have to dodge Imperial ships and the
Death Star planet blower-upper gun.
I found the most effective strat for winning was sitting still. I also learned the hard way, you cannot spam shots in this game. You actually have to take it slow or else they'll just disappear. It's not a super difficult game. It's also not an overly impressive one. I feel like this game really defines Atari though. Big boom. Before moving on, I did discover that there was actually another Atari game that was cancelled, set during Return of the Jedi, called Ewok Adventure. From my research, apparently it was cancelled because of its difficulty, and was thought to have been lost until a prototype copy was found in '97. Because of the rarity of this game, I had to improvise a bit just to play it. And since this game is unpublished, we'll just consider this a bonus entry. So you play as an Ewok on a glider, which kind of looks like a TIE Interceptor, and you go around shooting projectiles and stealing Imperial speeders and walkers. The controls are pretty janky, but that also could have been how I was emulating the game. I couldn't really get it to work right. It seems like this game did have a lot of potential to it. It's a shame that they scrapped it instead of tweaking it. Well, that wraps up 1983, bringing us to 1984, which had one game. Return of the Jedi, the arcade game, which came out before Empire for some reason. This game has 8 levels. Wow, that's crazy. Each of which having 3 stages. This includes speeder chase on Endor, ATST with Chewbacca, and Lando on the Falcon. This game was ported to Atari ST, ZX, Spectrum, mostly these old computers. The game actually lets you choose the difficulty by piloting the Death Star. I actually can't think of another game where we have that option to pilot the whole Death Star. And it opens with a line from Vader.
Leave them to me. I will deal with them myself.
Then we jump right into Endor, playing as Princess Leia for the first time, during the speeder bike chase. It's a little tricky, you can shoot, but I learned it's better to just smack enemies with your vehicle instead. Bam, bam, bam! The challenge is dodging the damn stormtroopers and the environment. I know they're trying to help me, but the Ewoks frankly killed me the most. Furry assholes. After completing the stage, C-3PO says we are now part of the tribe.
We are now a part of the tribe.
Oh boy! The next stage is really bizarre. You play both as Chewie, controlling an AT-ST, going around dodging purely Ewok crap. Not even Imperials, it's just Ewok traps and rolling logs. During the same sequence, you also switch to play as Lando and Wedge, flying around some Star Destroyers. That's actually rather impressive for the time to try and create that sense of these things happening simultaneously. but can also be a bit jarring when how roughly it cuts between sequences. It actually feels easier than the previous stage up until the ship starts shooting at you, and you have very limited space to dodge with. As we get closer to the shield generator, Imperial walkers start popping up, and still a lot easier to deal with than the logs. I mean, sure, they can shoot, they're pretty static and not much of a threat. Those Ewoks are far worse. This is pretty much the same as the first stage. You dodge the environment and TIE fighters, and it can get pretty stressful, but overall, I found this easier than the beginning. But once you get to the end, it gets problematic. Now you have to do the same thing, but inverted. This was easily the hardest part of the game. Gotta have some force level pod racing reflexes for this one. And I could never get to this stage with having an extra life. So that anxiety was pretty damn crazy. It's a really neat game, and I think it's actually rather beautiful for its time. But damn, it can be a challenge. Well, that's not it, because a year later they made an arcade game to wrap up the whole trilogy. Except that it's the middle movie, but whatever. This one apparently only released as an arcade game, except for the Rebel Squadron 3 port, but we aren't there yet. Alright, now we're talking. This game goes back to being a flight simulator much like the first arcade game. It takes place during the Battle of Hoth, starting with Luke shooting Imperial drones and eventually walkers. I mean, just look at these graphics. This is beautiful. You can actually turn and move the map, making it feel more immersive. The next stage is when things get more amped. You play as Han and the gang's escape from Hoth, being chased by the much more threatening TIE fighters. This is when you gotta start locking in. Man, even Obi-Wan wants to tell me not to get pissed at the game.
Luke, don't give in to hate. That leads to the dark side.
Yeah, after a while this one started giving me a headache. And just like the previous ones, once you beat it, it starts over with a higher difficulty. Let's move on. The next Star Wars game is certainly an interesting piece of history. Here we have the first Nintendo System Star Wars game, released for the Famicom in 1987 by Namco. This game is also a Japanese exclusive. You may already be aware of the Star Wars NES game. This is not that. This is, well, the game actually starts off incredibly impressive. This game has an easy and hard mode. And I've heard that this game is pretty notoriously difficult, so we'll go easy. This is a really nice scene here of Luke looking at Leia's hologram message for Obi-Wan, and then R2 is immediately kidnapped, or droid-napped. And now Luke has black hair. For what it's worth, the controls aren't too awful, although it's odd that Luke is already using his lightsaber. He hasn't even been to Obi-Wan's house yet to get it. The attacks need to be pretty precise. The enemies aren't too difficult here at the start. Once we get into the Sandcrawler, we face off against Vader? Okay. And he's a scorpion. Yeah, alright, yeah. I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't already know this. I've watched AVGN for God's sake. But it's still incredibly weird. Afterwards, you have to save R2, and then you get this speeder power-up that lets you zoom right to the end of the level. Afterwards, you get a whole freaking flight simulator, and it's pretty fun. Look, you can't say that this game doesn't have content. Although, why is Luke the one flying the Falcon? Obi-Wan then sends a distress call for us to go find him? Okay. And then we're here, some type of Anubis planet. This section is pretty ass, and it started to have me lose interest a little bit. Annoying platforms with a still pretty simplistic design. And why are we here? We're killing frogs, for God's sake. Apparently this is Kessel? Okay, sure. This is where the game gets really, really tedious. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it! Well, there's old Ben. How the hell do I get to him? Okay, now for the second boss. The dinosaur. I beat the original Ninja Gaiden for God's sake, but this boss irked me something fierce. Like the last level, we take off on the Falcon. Looks like 3PO needs our help now? What sweet hell is this? Oh, underwater level. This game hasn't been fun for a minute. And how come Vader doesn't have to swim? Robot legs have an ass. Oh, look. We're finally gonna save Leia. After finally reaching the top, we face off against Vader. For real this time. And you only get one hit in before he turns invincible, I guess. So now you gotta use Obi-Wan to beat Vader, who just Explodes? God damn. Alright. Afterwards, we make our escape and Chewie needs our help now. Wouldn't you think our next step would be, I don't know, fighting the Death Star? Now it looks like we're at Yavin to save Han? From what? Being recruited by the rebels? We go further into the rebel base and then there's the boss. Not sure how he recovered from that explosion earlier. Oh, and he can shoot lightsabers. Awesome. This boss actually wasn't too bad, just keep jumping behind him. Finally, it's time to destroy the Death Star. It works kind of like a top view race, doing multiple laps until finally shooting the proton torpedoes in. It gets really intense though with a timer. The lasers being fired at you and all the obstacles. I was down to my last ship and totally locked in. But I did beat this notorious game.
Oh!
Thank you, Wan for this piece of shit. In all fairness, it's not that awful. It's not that great either. My biggest issue is the life system. You get hit once and you're dead, and you only get a few chances before it's game over. And then you have to start all over again. Spent too many hours in this game. The next game is really interesting. Star Wars Droids. Looks like I finally have a reason to talk about this damn DVD now. I've said it before, I have a soft spot for 80s cartoons. Even the cheap ones. There's just an interesting allure to them and their unique styles. Droids is alright. It takes place about 15 years before A New Hope, seeing the adventures of R2 and C-3PO as they face off against space gangsters and pirates and whatever else is cramped in those 13 episodes. As is with most Star Wars media, or 80s cartoons, a major plan to bank on this was the merchandising. Toys by Kenner especially, kids' books, and the computer game. The show went from 1985 to 86, although the game didn't come out until 1988, where Star Wars was actually suffering a decline in popularity. Well, let's give this game a shot. Okay, so you walk left or right, you throw gold or rocks at enemies, I think. That's suggestive. Alright, yeah, screw this. Well, that wraps up the 80s. The first game of the 1990s was the only other Japanese exclusive game, I think. Star Wars Attack on the Death Star 1991. A simulator for the Death Star run. Let me tell you, setting up the means to play this game took far longer than the amount of gameplay it actually offered. I had to set up an emulator for a Japanese exclusive computer, and it did not want to comply. But basically the whole game's just this advanced port of the original arcade game. I wish I could have put more into this one, but sadly the hardware was against me. And unfortunately that's just something we're gonna have to deal with for these games that don't have modern support. Next up is Star Wars on the NES, the first Star Wars game developed by LucasArts. This is the real beginning of an era here. This game opens with some beautiful title arts and even an opening crawl. Afterwards, we get a slight recreation of the opening. I mean, look at that. This is glorious. This title then starts with us playing Luke, trying to find R2-D2. And after going into this cave, we can notice an immediate difference in this game. The art style and music are all vastly superior. This cave OST kind of goes hard. And most of all, we have an actual health bar this time. Yeah, no more one-hit deaths for us. Let's go. Surely all these positives must mean that this will be a great game, right? The open world is actually rather impressive. It's pretty large and leaves a lot of areas you can explore. Oh, fall damage. That's a great idea for a platformer. Yeah, this game definitely amped up the difficulty. Trial and error goes a long way here. Now that I saved R2, what the hell do I do from here? After searching for about 20 minutes, I finally found Obi-Wan in a cave full of flying insects trying to gangbang me in the most awful platforming ever. I'll admit, the cantina put a smile on my face. This section was also pretty straightforward. I grabbed the lightsaber and mowed everyone down. We find Han, and to my pleasant surprise, we can actually play as Han in this game. Is that Boba Fett? I can't kill him! Urgh. Finally got to the goddamn Falcon. I swear to God, this game better not have any of those random ass planets like the previous game or I'm a flip. It took me 50 minutes to get off of Tatooine. Now here's the asteroid section from hell. And guess what? You get one shot at this. What even hit me there? That has got to be one of the worst experiences of my life. Oh, thank God. After an annoying elevator labyrinth section, we finally save the princess. This time we can shoot, and it's not bad. Man, it takes way longer than it should, especially when right after we have to jump into the Death Star attack. This time we can move, though in the X-Wing it's way more tedious, and also takes far too long. Once we're clear, we move into the trench run, which is just a worse version of the Japanese game. The TIE fighters spawn behind you, meaning they get a lot of cheap shots in when you're trying to dodge obstacles. This also lasts an ungodly amount of time. Thankfully, on my last life, I figured out I can shoot missiles and boom.
Oh!
I should also mention that there was a Game Boy port of this, and it's pretty impressive. I mean, it's just a game on Game Boy, but neat. We have one more game for the NES, Empire Strikes Back. It is not identical to the previous game. In fact, it's kind of worse. We start off on a Tauntaun, and it's dead. We spend some time in the ice cave, killing a couple Wampas, which aren't really that threatening. Look at that, I can just stand still and kill them. Why does the Wampa keep shaking its ass at me? And look at what it does! Bro is rocking out. The final boss actually turns out to be a Super Imperial Probe Droid. Yeah, that's a big one. I'm seeing a pattern to these boss fights, and they aren't exactly fun. Now we get a flight section. Okay, yeah, wow, no, that was awful. That was horrid. It wasn't even that difficult. I didn't die here. It just took way longer than it should have. It's basically the Atari Empire Strikes Back game, which is really cool to see. It sort of mimics it. But it's also interesting to see how an entire Atari game can just be one section of this game. We're already seeing the influence of the older games here. So we actually have to destroy all the AT-ATs here. A new gimmick is going back and forth with the background and foreground, and spam shots of the legs until they die. You'll most likely lose a ship or two in the process, but don't worry, you can walk around the ground for a bit until a new one pops up. There probably could have been one or two less walkers here just to make the process feel less grueling, but it was grueling. It was. And afterwards, no, we are not at Dagobah, we're still at... The game is purely from Luke's perspective, so don't expect to see any of these fun bits from the movie. The Rebel base section isn't as long, and you actually get to use ATST. Luke, you can't travel by foot? Well, that's not a problem. Yeah! The boss was ass, though. Just had to sit there for a while doing this. Now to Dagobah! Off to a great start. If this game's goal was to show you how awful living on Dagobah would be, it succeeded. Quite literally, everything here wants to kill you. Giant spiders and bats, and the hell is that thing? At this point in the game, I just wanted it to be over, so I used the bunny hop strategy. Much training to do before teaching. Don't those already go hand in hand? This section especially had me growing a disdain for this game, and why was fighting Vader easier than every other creature in this swamp? Man, this Yoda is far more keen for helping me out than the movie one. You want to train? Sure, why not? Want to go leave and save your friends? Yeah, go ahead. Be careful, man. Now another flight section at Bespin. First we have to destroy 20 Bespin ships, which isn't a problem when they die in one hit. After fighting space Nazis in the swamp from hell, and some space cops shouldn't be an issue here. Oh, and now 32 TIE fighters. Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, what could be next? Destroy 100 Star Destroyers? Well, we've made it to Cloud City. You guys remember that scene in Empire where Luke beats up Boba Fett and then has a space battle against him? Oh my god, well, Han's dead, I guess. Final boss time? Let's go. Oh, there's Vader. Why does he have a gun? And why is his lightsaber blue? I'll be honest with you, I almost dropped the game on this boss. I found the most effective way is to smack him really fast. Every time you beat him, yes, every time, you get a full health and force upgrade, so that's nice. The final boss broke me. It's not bad enough that he just kind of kills you, just standing near him without him even hitting you. But Vader is also slinging all kinds of shit at you. I keep bouncing around hoping and praying, but no. I was finally able to beat him, but I died too. Thankfully, it still counted. There are times when beating a game doesn't feel rewarding. This is one of those times. But on the bright side, we're done with the NES and moving on to some of the coolest Star Wars games ever made, and considered most difficult, the Super Trilogy. Now, technically there are a couple games that came out in between these. I feel like it would keep a better flow and prevent fatigue by going through those, instead of burning through all of these at once. But here we are, 1992, Super Star Wars on the SNES. Look at the LucasArts logo. That's when you know we're getting into the good stuff. This is actually getting me in the mood to watch the damn movie again. The pixel art is so damn good too. Except for, what the hell did they do to Mark? This game's got me all kinds of giddy. Look, it's even the same as the movie. Look at this work of art. I couldn't even imagine being a Star Wars fan in the 90s and playing this for the first time. Why is everything so dangerous from the start? This is gonna be a journey. This is gonna be a journey. So the trick to this boss, it seems, is keeping distance. Oh man, all of that just for some grocery shopping. That's crazy. After this boss, we get a vehicle section. This looks immensely impressive, and certainly plays better than all the others. But it's still kind of a pain in the ass. After learning the controls, the key here is patience. You have to kill a certain amount of Jawas before that game allows you to head to the Sandcrawler. Okay. Which turns into a platformer from hell. Oh, that's right, this is a Nintendo game. And now we're in the Sandcrawler. This is gonna be a long game, isn't it? This game really has me screaming, what the hell is that thing? A lot. That thing earlier wasn't the boss? Well, I guess the trick here is don't let him push you off. Actually, that wasn't that hard at all. Found out too and got a lava ball up my ass. I feel like I'm really getting the handle of these controls. What the hell is going on in Dune Sea, man? This place is awful. I mean, who's doing this? Obi-Wan? Is he testing me by having me bounce on floating rocks? Oh yeah, lightsaber time. Now we got a game going here. Wait a minute, those things were Womp Rats the whole time? And this thing's a mutant Womp Rat! Oh look, a character select screen. We can play Chewie! Looks like all our upgrades carry over, so that's really cool. Oh my god, we're just shooting up the cantina. Has Greedo even done anything yet? Or is Chewie just pissed that people are in his path? I like the little strut in his walk. Oh hey, there's Jizz. Chewie's looking chill for someone who just slaughtered an entire bar. This boss is absolute dookie butter. Well, we finally finished Tatooine and made it to the Death Star. Isn't it kind of weird how all the Death Star bosses are easier than the Tatooine ones? Well, we saved Leia, blew up the tractor beam, and then... hell. The first part of the space battle is a reskin of the land speeder, but worse. I just held one direction and kept shooting and eventually getting to the trench run. This was a pain for my fingers. You had to keep blasting all the TIE fighters to save your ship, and it gets pretty damn tedious. After that, you blow up Vader's ship, I guess, and then what? What am I supposed to do here? Am I supposed to press a different button? Oh, it's the bumpers. Apparently I had torpedoes this whole time. Whatever, we beat the game! This is definitely the best Star Wars game we've played so far. The first game that really makes you feel like we're getting somewhere. And it feels comprised of all the building blocks we've seen before it to be a complete package. A full-scale game allowing you to play your favorite moments of A New Hope with fun and challenging gameplay, smooth SNES controls. This game is awesome. It's a tough son of a bitch, but it's definitely not short on fun. Now, while the other two films did get super games, we had a couple come out between them. So let's move on to Star Wars X-Wing, released in 1993. Star Wars was starting to get a resurgence in popularity at this point, with the home media releases and the Thrawn trilogy. There was a drought of Star Wars media for years until Timothy Zahn's novel, Heir to the Empire, dropped. Meant to follow up to Return of the Jedi, it sparked a new interest in the franchise. Many also speculated that this spark influenced George Lucas to start working on the prequels. That, alongside the growing success in flight simulators, which LucasArts themselves have been working on, just made sense to make a game allowing players to pilot the famous Rebel ships, except this time to make it more accurate and realistic than ever before. Now, the original game came out on PC engines in 1993, the special edition came out in 94, which had enhanced graphics and gameplay as well as additional levels from expansion packs. We'll be looking a bit at both, but for the most part I'll be playing the classic version. And look at that, an actual full-scale cutscene. This is really exciting to see given all the previous games we've played. This cinematic is so fun with its very jerky 90s pixel animation. The music alone, oh my gosh. You can really tell that we're making some serious technological advancements here, and it feels far more significant than just for video games. Now the gameplay itself is... what am I doing? Every button on the keyboard controls something different on the X-Wing. They really wanted this to be a simulator. The game also really wants you to use a joystick. I used to have one, unfortunately I don't anymore, but a controller kind of works too. There's a tutorial section, but it's boring as sin, so I jumped right into the tour of duty. Blew up a ship, and now what? And I'm lost. And the mission failed. Huh. X-Wing actually does take quite a bit of learning to really master it. You have these historic combat missions meant to help familiarize yourself with the game's combat and controls, such as learning how to use the X-Wing by reliving this guy Dev, his screw up. He accidentally started attacking the Empire thinking it was a training session. What a goober. There are a lot of really cool features here. Basically every key on the keyboard does something. Changing perspectives, weapons, throttles, giving commands to your squadron, to your astromech. Hell, you can even review in-game footage of your missions. This game is awesome! Learning to play this game is the real process, but if you take the time to do that, it's pretty rewarding. Eventually, after a very lengthy campaign, full of 3 tour of duties, that you have piloting different rebel ships, not just the X-Wings. You got the A-Wings, the Y-Wings. The campaign is pretty immersive, with lots of references to the films, and some outside lore and perspectives to them, but gameplay-wise, it's mostly just go here, blow this up, and leave. Something else that this game does really well is its music. This is before MP3 files were a thing, and it was actually LucasArts that really brought dynamic music to games. All the previous games we played before were basically song loops, but here we have music that appropriately matches what's happening. The game does ultimately end on the Death Star. Eesh. The final mission is actually a rather nail-biting trench run simulator. X-Wing shows insane progress in Star Wars gaming. I can imagine how mind-boggling it must have been to play this back in the day. It is a bit of a pain in the ass trying to get it to work in 2025. I did try playing the remastered version, but didn't really work that good. The music kept cutting out, and my controller just didn't seem to really respond well to it. And the actual visual style of the game looks really good. Significantly better, really, but I don't know, I'm kind of more prone to the classic style because there's just something really historic about it. That's kind of the problem with these games. You have to do a lot of outside modding and work just to get them to run properly. The later titles in the franchise have some jaw-dropping mods we'll look at when we get to them that really modernize the games in a beautiful way. But unfortunately, because of the age and systems of X-Wing, we don't really have those luxuries yet. There is a really cool mod under construction, but it has not been released yet. Either way, when you buy this game, you get all the versions, so you don't have to pick and choose. You have every option available to you, which is really cool, especially because these games can be really dirt cheap if you get them on sale. You've got historic missions, tour of duty missions. It's a lot. You're definitely getting the immersive experience of being an X-Wing pilot, for better or for worse. Now, following X-Wing in late 1993 was Rebel Assault, released on the PC and Sega CD. This is a rail shooter game and the first LucasArts game to be exclusive to CD-ROM tech. Now this utilizes a very interesting approach of digitizing live-action footage from the movies. This is actually one of the earliest games to use full motion video for PC. All in all, it's pretty extensive work into structuring the game's storytelling presentation. Something else that's interesting is that the protagonist that you play is known as Rookie 1. And you can pick if you want them to be male or female, hence the gender-neutral name. You play as this rookie pilot for the Rebel Alliance during the events of A New Hope. The game uses pre-rendered cutscenes having you play through set courses. And it does look like ass. I think it looks a little bit better on PC than it does on the Sega CD. Here's the big kicker. The controls are awful. Almost unplayable. I thought it was a Steam issue at first, but it seems like the Sega CD isn't much better. The sensitivity for moving your ship is so absurd. The lightest movement of your mouse will send the ship all the way to a wall. It was a skill on its own just to learn how to move in this game. Shit! The first 2 missions were okay, but the third? Oh, goodness. I felt like my eyes were popping out of my skull playing this. And then the shooting sections. Ugh. Not only is the sensitivity so high on your cursor, but the movement is never ending, so it's so difficult to keep your aim on any targets. I do like this early attempt of giving us this story narrative in a Star Wars game. The music's great, and it's cool to play around with the outside events of A New Hope. But this game hardly functions. Playing with the controller does help a bit though. After Chapter 6, we go to Hoth. I assumed that this meant we jumped to Empire Strikes Back, but no, I guess they just already had a base set up here. But the Empire already scouted them here. Wouldn't that put this planet on a list or something? They just come back here after Yavin? And we actually get an on-foot section. Just think, we're so close to Toy Story. Now, would you believe me if I told you the game ended at the Death Star attack? The last several levels can be pretty intense, mainly because of how ass the controls are. Oh, Rebel Assault is one of the most interesting games we played so far. I think I actually could have liked it if the controls worked. Rebel Assault is followed by a sequel, but we got some time before we get to that one. Next up is Super Empire Strikes Back. That's right, it's time to continue the SNES series. Look at that. The menu screen art is just, so much better than the first. After the last couple of games we played, I'm really excited to play this one now. I expected the game to be somewhat identical, but there appears to be some changes to the gameplay. The spinny jump move is now a combination of buttons instead of angling the D-pad in a certain direction. And the art just seems a lot better here. Much like the first game, right off the bat, the entire wildlife of Hoth is out to kill you. Oh look, we can ride a Tauntaun like the NES game. And it's certainly a lot better in this one. You can really just steamroll this section spamming your lightsaber or jumping over targets. Yeah, the spinny move here is your best friend. Behold, the Jedi Beyblade. Oh god. There's the mama. You know, Nintendo really likes to make a 10-minute section for a movie an entire game. The snow speed sequence is exactly what you expected. However, something that is pretty neat is you actually get to use the tow cables to wrap around and trip the AT-ATs. We're getting more movie accurate than just blasting them like the old games. And just like the movie, you'll be knocked out of your speeder and you have to fight an AT-AT on foot. Of course, this game thought that would be an appropriate boss. You can keep killing these jet troopers till they drop something useful like a detonator. Boom! After playing Luke, the game switches us to Han to find Leia and escape Echo Base. This section is kinda a maze, but with minimal annoyance after I learned how these damn platforms worked. Then we have to fight two annoying bosses, we get ourselves an asteroid simulator, and then we're on Dagobah. That was surprisingly less tedious than I thought. What are these mosquito things? They look like beans with veins. This boss is the Habo-Gaha-ha-ha or whatever. It's been the most tedious damn boss in this whole game. You gotta smack these shielded plates off. Then you have to pray that you have enough health left over to Beyblade him to death. We then go back to Han and get revenge on the Carbonite device. And they let us fight Boba Fett. It's kind of a shame we couldn't play Leia or Lando, but Chewie fighting Boba Fett is pretty neat. And then we're fighting the Slave One, another mid-flight section, and then we get on the final level. Alrighty, it's Darth time. I gotta say, so far, the fight against Darth Vader in this game was a nightmare. That was also because I didn't pick up all the Force upgrades that I should have been. Found out about that a little too late. So going into this boss without the ability to heal was, it wasn't fun. It was not fun. He does mad damage with goofy range. There is a way you can position yourself to get free hits, but it becomes really difficult when he starts throwing stuff at you. My hands were hurting with this one. All in all, Super Empire Strikes Back just took everything about Super Star Wars and made it slightly better, and also a little more difficult. I'm excited to see how this game concludes the original trilogy with Jedi, but we got a little bit more before we get to that. There's one more game left from 1993. Star Wars Chess. Oh, sorry. The software Toolworks. Star Wars Chess for PC and Sega CD. I guess even chess needs an opening crawl. Alright, so this is chess with Star Wars characters. I don't know how to play chess. It's actually incredible that I took the time to learn how to play Mahjong and other games for the Yakuza series, but I never learned the fundamentals of chess. The animation is awesome on this. I don't know how to play chess, but I love watching the characters go at each other. Look at R2 kick this stormtrooper's ass. Uh-oh. Why did it boing? That's awesome. I love the animation here. I think this game has a built-in move suggestion. It highlights a character and where I should send them. Ah! This is awesome. Yeah, that's for Alderaan. I mean, yeah, if you like chess and like Star Wars, this is the game for you. These beautiful animations giving this great visual style. Star Wars chess. It's pretty damn cool. Next up is Star Wars Arcade. Again, this time by Sega, released in 1994. This was an arcade game that was also ported to the Sega 32X, which is the version we're playing. The original arcade game was set during Return of the Jedi, but the 32X actually added levels set during the first Death Star attack. Oh. It is kind of cool that Admiral Akbar is there on the little screen. It may not look as impressive as X-Wing, and the controls are definitely simplified. You get a fire button, torpedoes, and a button to slow down so you can shoot the TIE fighters behind you. And like an X-Wing, you can switch from third and first person. At first, the game felt pretty harmless and pretty redundant, but then it got really tedious as hell. Damn, what's even hitting me? There's little you can do in this game except hoping you got some good evasive maneuvers.
That was your maneuver? Moving slightly to the left?
Well, I mean, we're not in the same place we were.
Don't even get me started on the trench run. Shooting the TIE fighters in space is fun for a bit, but trying to maneuver this damn thing during the trench run really just sucks. It could also be because of the controls I'm using. I don't know, but this game, there's not really that much to it. It really showed off the 32X pretty well though. I thought the game looked really good. Gameplay wise, not too much to say. TIE Fighter and its expansions. This is part of the X-Wing series, now from the Empire's perspective. This seems to be the first game to really give us the option to be the villains. And well, playing the Empire is a lot more fun, although the game does its part to make you feel like you're the good guys. And look, they even have Thrawn in here. Now I'm returning to this from the future, but it turns out there's actually a mod for X-Wing Alliance that ports TIE Fighter into that game's engine. I will say though that the game looks significantly better. They have made quite a bit of improvements on the graphics engine. They used a newer 3D rendering system with better shadows, really giving these models a much better look. A lot of people from back in the day consider this to be the greatest Star Wars game ever made. And again, this game does still kind of suffer from those porting issues on Steam, and it is pretty long with several tours of duties. The original had 3, this one has 7, all of which range from 6 to 5 missions. It starts at the aftermath of Hoth from Empire Strikes Back, where you're hunting down the rebels that are fleeing away. The game ends with you saving the Emperor and getting your own medal ceremony. Nice to see that the Emperor actually gives some credit to his minions. The core gameplay of all these games essentially remained the same, but TIE Fighter brought in a lot of additions, such as flight logs, 3D maps, sub-targeting systems, and its assortment of ships. The roster of crafts in this game is vastly larger than the previous. And to my knowledge, this is the only entry of the series to really put a lot of focus on non-canonical ships. It's just better than X-Wing, and that's a good thing. But it's time to move on. Super Return of the Jedi. Now we're finally closing off the Super Trilogy. Yet another beautiful title screen recreating the Jedi poster. Wow, the opening cutscene even included this moment. They definitely changed up the driving mechanics in this one. Now you gotta jump to avoid falling to your death. We get to choose from Luke, Chewie, and is that Slave Leia? Well, that's accurate. Glad to know that everything on Tatooine still kills you. Look at the art on this game though. Absolutely beautiful. The heat in the background. These games are just showing how much they've learned from the previous installments. What in the Sonic is this? I can't control it! The first boss is surprisingly annoying and probably the hardest first boss out of these games depending on your character. Luke had a much easier time using the Jedi Beyblade. Also, it seems that he already has his arsenal of force powers, which shows that he is OP now. Jabba's palace looks incredible. Art in the foreground and background, breathing so much life into the environment. Wait, what the hell? Are those Rancors jumping out of the pit? Wow, even the Twi'lek dancers attack you. The boss is Bib? Okay, sure. There's the Rancor. Wait, that's a frog! The Rancor pit level sucks, and the boss is a total pain. Unless you play Han. Oh, they actually did put Slave Leia in the game. Of course, we've got the famous speeder scene on Endor, which actually isn't that difficult. We get to play Wicket? Let's go! Something that's really cool about Wicket is that he can actually jump on the arrows he shoots. The game continues the film's canon, Luke going to Vader, and then we're in a shooting section in space. Oddly more satisfying than the Sega 32X version. The final act missions then alternate like the film, going from the Death Star attack to Luke's duel on the Death Star. Glad to see Vader hasn't changed, and that was a lot easier than Empire. Damn, I didn't know Papa Palpy had moves like that. And we go into the Death Star and it's kind of giving me a headache. Hey, that's not Hayden Christensen. Would you look at that? We beat the Super Trilogy. These are some of the best Star Wars games I've ever played. And I've played quite a bit. It's got that classic Nintendo charm to it, with everything Star Wars. All three of these games get a big hell yeah from me. 1995. Things are about to get real. It's time for Star Wars Dark Forces. This is the game that made Star Wars fans wet their pants. We are about to approach, well, I guess it's not really the modern era anymore of gaming. Anyway, this is a badass Doom clone. It was actually more so inspired by Wolfenstein, which made the game creator, Darren Sinnott, want to make a first-person shooter instead of just another flight simulator. They developed their own engine for this game called the Jedi Engine. The original idea was to retell Luke Skywalker's story, but they felt that was too limited in the possibilities. So we got a whole new protagonist, Kyle Katarn. This OC opens the door to a whole new realm of lore and fanboys. His story is actually pretty crazy. The game was released on PC and PlayStation and has since been remastered for modern systems. We're going to look a little bit at the older version, but I'll be doing my full playthrough on the PS5 remaster because I bought the thing a while ago and I really need to play it. The game opens with Kyle traveling to an Imperial base on Danuta. Wait a minute. To steal the Death Star plans. Yep, this is the OG Rogue One. One of the big things about this game, which may sound silly to you now, is that you can actually look up and down. Isn't that crazy? And for some reason, it may be the emulator fault, the game wasn't really looking like it was supposed to on PlayStation. The environment and everything else looked great, but the character sprites and weapon textures were horrid. This is definitely an emulation issue though, because I looked through the game again on my PS Vita and it was just fine. The PC version still looks amazing today. The character sprites and their animations are incredible. It's not hard to see why this game was such a groundbreaking classic. But the original is still on DOS, which is... it's very temperamental on modern computers. I should also compliment the remaster for being rather beautiful. I haven't really heard anyone complain about it, and I don't have any myself. Controls are more fluid, and the graphics are upscaled quite nicely. The best thing, if you don't like how it looks now, you can turn off the enhanced graphics. Tomb Raider did the same thing, and I love when remasters give you that option. They say, hey, you don't like what we did? Here you go, push a button. Now you can go and enjoy it the old way too. That's awesome, come on. After the first mission, we get to a major cutscene, which originally was a very pixelated animation style to now being a more kind of a comic book feel to it. The game then jumps to after the first Death Star being destroyed, with the rebels assigning Kyle and his partner Jan to a new mission to investigate this base that was attacked by a new unknown type of enemy. They discover the weapon belonging to the Dark Trooper. Yeah, we know what that is. These are the super droid stormtrooper guys. They've changed quite a bit in their different uses in different media, but these guys have been in several different Star Wars stories and games, and it was Dark Forces that actually introduced them. The weapon leads the gang into an investigation, which has us traversing from many different terrains and different planets. We actually end up fighting a Phase 1 Shadow Trooper. What in the T-100? Man, this Kyle guy is so badass. Invading Imperial bases, blowing up factories, punching Kel Dragons with his bare hands. Holy Boba Fett jump scare! The game ultimately ends with exploring Vader's ship and battling the game's main villain, the guy behind the Dark Troopers, Ram Mak, on the Arc Hammer. Afterwards, Kyle is awarded a medal for his bravery, and Vader gives an ominous teaser of Kyle being Force sensitive. Dark Forces is still a fun game today, especially if you're a fan of Wolfenstein and Doom, those type of shooters. This game is awesome. This game has a lot of secrets and Easter eggs, some of which pertain to hating Ewoks. And you can also get the Platinum Trophy just by beating the game. You don't even have to really go and find all of those unlockables or secrets. Unfortunately, the sequel hasn't been remastered, so we'll have to do some compatibility with that, but we got a little bit of time before then. The last game of 1995 is the sequel to Rebel Assault. This game released for computer systems and PlayStation. Now if you guys remember the first Rebel Assault, it was a really neat game, a sort of rail shooter interactive movie. Unfortunately, the controls were completely dog-ass. My hope was that this game had improved on that. You can actually play this game on PS5, and I also don't know how good that port is though because we're playing the PC version. This game utilizes way more live-action footage. It's basically entirely an interactive movie. What's really interesting is that this thing was basically actors in Star Wars gear in front of a blue screen. You know, Like how they made the prequels? It's kind of a mix of professional looking mixed with fan film. You can tell that the actors are just excited to do something Star Wars related. I can imagine it was a lot of fun making this. The Empire is developing these new weapons and you gotta go around and destroy their crap. Average Rebel experience. The controls are significantly better in this game, and you can actually play it this time. The flying is still a little sketchy, but it's definitely better than it was before. Not a whole lot to say about this one. It took maybe an hour to beat it. It's got a lot of charm to it. Some fun quirks, callbacks to the films, and you can just really feel the love for the source material. If you run across this one for cheap, check it out. It's a pretty damn neat game. Now we move on to 1996. This was a huge year for Star Wars, with only one video game. And no, I'm not being sarcastic. This was the Star Wars game. Shadows of the Empire. This was an entire multimedia project that Lucas was somewhat involved with. Somewhere out there he even said that he considered this to be canon at one point. Anticipation for the prequels was through the roof. Star Wars hype was really coming back in high gear. The special editions were about to come out with theatrical re-releases. This was an awesome time to be a Star Wars fan. And so the Shadows of the Empire project happened. Toys, a novel, comic books, and of course, the N64 game, which was also later ported on Windows. The game was meant to be a launch title for the new Nintendo console. It was meant to oppose the older pre-rendered games and add real-time action. We could research and talk about the development of this game for hours, but we should probably go ahead and move on with the game itself. I know a lot about Shadows. I've even read the book, but I've never actually played the game all the way through until today. I felt like it was appropriate to start with the N64 version as that was the original way to experience it, and then I learned that the PC version is actually vastly superior, but we'll get to that in a second. The novel itself opens up right at the end of Empire. The game actually opens during the Battle of Hoth. This is the game's protagonist, Dash Rendar. Just like Dark Forces, this game lets us go in the shoes of a new OC, witnessing iconic events of Star Wars and filling in his own role in them. Well, he's an old smuggler buddy of Han and Lando's with a vendetta against the Empire. He also just enjoys the adrenaline rush and decides to help out the rebels during their escape. So here we have a 3D recreation of the Battle of Hoth. Wow, what a step forward. How far we've progressed in over a decade. You get to shoot tow cables and trip up AT-ATs. What's really nifty here is you also have multiple perspectives. Using those tow cables though, definitely took a delicate touch. The controls of this game have aged quite a bit. Now when I did give the PC version another shot, wow. You have fully animated cutscenes opposed to the slideshow ones of the N64. It's also interesting too that these cutscenes give different perspectives on the same scenes. The N64 shows Han talking to Dash, whereas the animated one has Dash talking to Lebo about what Han told him. Now, I don't mind the slideshow cutscenes personally. It kind of reminded me of the Super Trilogy. Hell, you could slip this one in during a marathon of the Super games if you wanted to. The problem though was the controls. I found the game to be incredibly slippery with the N64 controller, whereas the PC one just took a little getting used to, but once I got the handle of it, I definitely preferred the PC version. I feel like I have so much more control of my character, and you also do get a lot more lore in the cutscenes with the PC version. Look, they even got Guri in here. It's really like a different experience. The music is also a lot cleaner, and you have more in-game voices as well. After the flight section, we have an on-foot stage in the Echo base. There's no real lock-on for enemies, you kind of just have to aim yourself towards them, or you can actually use the aim button, but it's still a little janky. When I played against the first boss on the N64, I was having a time, mostly because I wasn't prepared and I was still learning how the game functions, but he definitely was beating my ass. When I played it on PC though, popped a few Seekers at him, and he was down for the count. Look at the asteroid field. This game is full of so much stuff. It's so fun. The story moves into the second part, after some of the events of the novel's narrative. Luke and Dash are now looking for Boba Fett post-Empire Strikes Back, before Boba Fett can make his way to Jabba. The novel introduces Shizor, pretty damn interesting villain, and I hope I pronounced it right. This dude is like the wealthiest guy in the galaxy, making him the third most powerful person under Vader and the Emperor. And so he wants to get his hands on Luke before Vader to impress Palpatine. And he also has this human robot replicant named Guri who looks more like she belongs in Star Trek. The game brings us into Dash's perspective on Or Mantel, a junk planet. This level is irksome. IG-88 boss fight though. Get back here, you little bastard. Apparently every bounty hunter wants to get their hands on Han. Boba Fett's just having a hell of a time. Boba Fett was certainly more of a challenge in this game than Dark Forces. Look at his goofy ass. That jetpack never did anything good for him. And now we have to fight his ship. This boss sucked on the N64. My shots just kept going through the ship. Where was the hitbox? I had an absolute nightmare of a time. Now the PC version, what the hell? Now I thought originally that this was just supposed to be a race section, which made this unbearable. Then I learned you're supposed to actually kill these enemies, and it makes it a lot easier and fun to get through this level. After more novel events, such as Leia ending up in Shizor's captivity, Dash goes underground, the Imperial City, which is the renamed Coruscant. The game ends with Dash battling Shizor's 3-stage boss, the Gladiator, in his palace. Then a big old space battle, which results in Shizor getting blowed up. And everyone thinks that Dash died as well, but he actually took the opportunity to escape. I would say even today, Shadows might be one of the greatest Star Wars games ever made. From one of the most exciting times to be a Star Wars fan. But man, those controls pissed me off on the N64 version. My biggest struggle wasn't the enemies or bosses, it was the goddamn controls. Even still, I think Shadows is one of the coolest side projects ever in Star Wars, and I would really love to see this game get a remaster. A good one, please, a good one. Now moving on to 1997, we only have a couple more years left before entering the prequel era. Dark Forces 2, now titled under the Jedi Knight series. Unlike the previous game, this one was PC only. Now thankfully it's not DOS anymore, but it still seems to have some compatibility problems. Interestingly enough also, this game had online multiplayer. So this game actually takes place after Return of the Jedi. There's this sort of prototype Imperial Inquisitor group of Sith, Dark Jedi, trying to find this ancient Jedi location, Valley of the Jedi. How many times can I say Jedi in a sentence? And look at that, live action cutscenes like Rebel Assault 2. Oof. I could imagine this partly being an issue in trying to remaster the game.
The dark side? I've been there. Do your worst.
I think we missed a bit of context between games. There's quite a bit of lore and novels outside of these games. I guess that they just kind of expected you to have already soaked them in. And that is some close FOV on this game. Adjusting to that, the game does run really smooth. The sprites of the previous game have been replaced with 3D models, and I think I like the sprites a bit better. They had a really nice look to it, but these are pretty cool too. The missions in this game are significantly longer, and that's because they went for a far more expansive narrative. This game actually took me a whole night to beat, and that's another important note. Some of those older games, I could knock out even a couple of them in a day. But since we got to the X-Wing series, these games have been taking a lot longer to get through. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either. That's just something to make note of. So after a little bit of lore digging, basically Kyle has always been force sensitive, and his dad was killed by the game's big bad Jarek. So he goes on a journey to find the valley, returning to his old home, and he gains a lightsaber. It really makes you feel indestructible in this game. The jumping, however, gives me immense anxiety. And you can also change your perspective if you want. Throughout the game, you'll end up fighting Dark Jedi while hunting the droid who has the map that we need. The first is Yun, who kind of looks like a Season 1 Buffy character, or Smallville. Now since Kyle is a cool guy and a Jedi, he doesn't kill Yun in cold blood. The chase leads to fighting against remnants of the Imperial Army. See, I like that kind of stuff. The era of the Empire novels, there's no pressure if it's canon or not. Hell, in my head, Star Wars ended with the Emperor dying. Everything after that was just for fun. And seeing the remains of the Empire trying to scurry around and reclaim power, it's pretty neat. It's different from the first game, being set during the original trilogy, and the game itself had that sort of classic feel to it. But the sequel definitely feels progressive and appropriate for moving on from the originals into a new era. We fight several more Dark Jedi and... what the hell? Why he ain't got no legs? This asshole pushes Kyle to kill him. Something interesting here is that the game actually branches depending on if you have more light side or dark side abilities. We'll stick with the canonical ending for now. Jarek has kidnapped Jan in hopes to push Kyle to the dark side. You face off against Teras now, using the deceased Yun's lightsaber. This bouncy bastard. Finally we face off against the big bad. Shut up. Kyle then kills him honorably in battle, saving Jan, and that's it. So the alternate ending is pretty crazy. Kind of reminds me of the Revenge of the Sith alternate ending. Kyle kills Jan, that breaks my heart, and then decides that he wants to be the big bad himself, eventually becoming a new emperor with only Teras alive. Wonder why. Yeah, Dark Forces 2 is insane. I think with this bigger narrative, it's better than the first. There's definitely an argument to be made about which one is better. Implementing Force powers while still being this separate character from the Skywalker family, I feel like that doesn't take away too much of the appeal of being this average guy. I guess in Star Wars, like Dash. The story is way more fleshed out, and it's still a little quirky and hasn't aged the best. I kind of like the live action cutscenes. I think more so in this than the Rebel Assault 2. Dark Forces 2 is a really badass game. Now it did get an expansion, I'm not forgetting it. However, it didn't come out till a year later, and it's pretty big, so we'll come back to it. The next game is for the PS1. Star Wars... I've been dreading this one. Masters of Teras Kasai? I don't know. I remember Teras being mentioned in Shadows of the Empire novel as this sort of martial arts hand-to-hand combat style. Because what was Star Wars missing? A Tekken clone. Yeah, I know this game is not looked on favorably, but we gotta play them all. Gotta play them all. Those sure are words on the screen I do not care about. What an interesting lineup. We got Han, the game's OC Arden Lin, who vaguely reminds me of someone else, but I can't put my finger on it. Chewie. Thok, oh hell yeah. Whore? It's not even, that's how they pronounce it in the game. Whore. Can you imagine being a kid in the 90s, you're playing this game, and the parent comes in and says, "Oh, what are you doing, kiddo?" I'm just playing whore. Who approved the name whore? Well, then again, they have a music style called Jizz in this series, so why not? Luke, Boba Fett, and Leia. Yeah, let's play Leia, why not? So, immediately, this game should not be playing at this high of a frame rate. This game is quite an unbalanced mess. Lots of times the hits don't connect when they should, some enemies have major range advantage over you. I love fighting games, but not so much this one. I do think this game falls under more mediocre than absolute dog ass. The game doesn't even include combos for characters, and I don't have the manual, so, I don't know how to do my specials. Oh wait, hold on now. We got something going on here. Okay, yeah, well, alright. The game's a bit better now. It's still very problematic fighter, though. Yeah, there's Darth Vader. Darth Vader just put up his dukes to me. Oh, come on, that's bullshit. His lightsaber won't even let me get close to him. Oh, he killed himself. And the game is over. I didn't even unlock Vader? Apparently you have to win as Luke to get Vader. Alright, well, that was a journey. Where is Vader? Oh. I'm supposed to do it on Jedi difficulty without continues? Nah, we put enough time in this one. Next up is Star Wars Monopoly. Well, which one? I've got a couple myself. Hell, I haven't even opened this one yet. This is Star Wars Monopoly for PC. Unfortunately, I couldn't really get it to work either. The images look pretty cool. It's this 3D space playing Monopoly with Star Wars characters. I guess I'm just stuck with the old practical then. Next up is X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter. Yet another entry in the X-Wing series, although when it originally released, it didn't have a story or a campaign. And that actually upset a lot of people. They did release an expansion to add a story though, but having the main story mode as DLC, it's kinda lackluster. But that's also because the main thing about this game was multiplayer. It also isn't running on DOS, thank God, and plays a lot smoother. Even my controller is more responsive with this one. You can play as the Imperial or the Rebels, allowing several possible different ships to choose from. Gameplay wise, there's a lot of tweaks done here. I can imagine online is where this game's really at. Unfortunately, I can't really experience that. I can only imagine how fun it is to finally get to play these games against your friends. These big online lobbies, I mean, online gameplay wasn't great back then. But still, I imagine that's the true way to experience this game. Especially because the story mode isn't really that special. While it is a great step forward on a technical note, I think I still like TIE Fighter the most so far. The next one is quite an oddball. Star Wars Yoda Stories released for the PC in 1997. This entry is meant to cover Luke's return to Yoda post-Empire to finish his training. And there's no modern PC support, so Fingers crossed that this will work. Alright, it does. It's a very small window, but it does. My face is pressed to the screen just to read the damn thing. So we walk around for a bit trying to find Yoda, who tells us to help a hidden rebel base. Yoda is telling us to go help a... Okay, sure, whatever. Thanks for the keycard, I guess. This game is pretty unique. It's got hours of content and all these different worlds you can explore and whatnot. But it's kind of meant to be on par with Solitaire or Minesweeper, those early Windows PC games. It's a simple game that you can kill time with. It's not as high octane as all these other games, but I can imagine, you know, for a bored kid in the late 90s, or even a parent learning on the computer, it's a cute little game. It's got puzzles. It's a weirder one, for sure. It's not really as bad as Rebel Assault 1, so it's somewhere in the middle. Let's try out the Game Boy version. Okay, this one is actually awful. This is horrible. This was actually considered to be one of the worst Star Wars games ever made. Yeah, this is complete dog shit compared to the PC version. I'm sorry to the people who probably had this game growing up and maybe have favorable memories of it. This is not a good game. It looks and sounds like piss, and not to mention it plays like ass as well. The controls are awful. I've had migraines that have been more fun than this piece of shit. There's a lot of praise that could be said for the PC version. The Game Boy one, I have none. This was not a good experience for me. If Yoda's true trial was to test your patience, and succeeded he did. 1998 brings us to the big expansion pack for Dark Forces 2. This expansion is such a big deal, it's kind of its own game. It's a little too short to be its own release compared to the base game. The big thing here was that this was the in-game debut of Mara Jade. Now those who've only seen the Star Wars canonical movies are probably asking, who the hell is that? Mara Jade is one of the most famous expanded universe characters in Star Wars. She was created by Timothy Zahn, part of his Thrawn trilogy. Originally a secret apprentice of Palpatine who eventually became a Jedi Master alongside her future husband, Luke Skywalker. Now George Lucas himself doesn't care much for this idea as, in his words, Jedi don't get married.
As the creator of Mara Jade, do you...
Wait! I am not the creator of Mara Jade, and I want you to get out of this office right now.
Ted, I got your voucher.
Out!
George aside, Star Wars nerds love this character, and this game is her on-screen debut, I believe? I'm sure I'll be corrected in the comments if I'm wrong on that. This game picks up not long after the main title, with Kyle training Mara in the Jedi arts. Weird, I thought she was already a higher level, but sure, yeah. During which, the Empire attacks. There's still a lot of those guys left after the Rebels destroyed them. This leads Kyle to a damn asteroid where he discovers an odd planet that calls to him, leaving Mara to help out the Rebels. The Rebels have two separate missions for Mara broken into several levels. The first has her going to see Kappa the Hutt to get supplies for the Rebels. It goes about as well as you'd expect. I actually really like the level where you're imprisoned by Kappa's rival, and you have to go without your weapons for a bit. And then you fight a damn Rancor, who definitely can eat you in one hit. The next section is, Pirates stole a Jedi holocron and you gotta get it back. That one didn't interest me as much. Finally, you go to find Kyle at Dromund Kaas, where Kyle's mind has been warped by the dark side, in the Dark Forces Temple. Roll credits? After an annoying labyrinth of a level, you fight Kyle and defeat him, not by using brawn. I gotta say, I really enjoyed playing Mara. She's a fun character and had that Star Wars wit to her. There's a lot of nice gameplay and graphical tweaks, but overall it's not vastly different from the main game. The big difference is there's no live action cutscenes in this one. Apparently there's also a hidden level where you can play as Luke on Bespin, but to unlock it, you have to go into the game's files. I couldn't get it to work, but it looks interesting. I won't say that this is as investing as the main game, but as far as DLC goes, this is really badass. Mara was a great addition to this game's narrative. If you're picking up Dark Forces 2, make sure you grab this one as well. The next game is Star Wars Rebellion on PC. I've never heard of this one before. Wait, actually I have seen this before. Did my dad play this game? This one is a real-time strategy game. Kinda like Empire at War, Galactic Battlegrounds, but not as fun. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend fans of this game. It's an old-time strategy game. You gotta use points to build your armies and your weaponry, your vehicles. pick your planets to take over, and, well, try to run the galaxy. As the Empire, at least. When playing as the Rebels, you want to beat the Empire. The game is actually pretty damn complex, at least if you want to be good at it. Honestly, I would have loved the shit out of this game back in the day. You can really waste your life away on this one. They even have encyclopedias for the planets and all the information. This is a real Star Wars nerd's dream. It takes place after A New Hope, but don't stress too much on the canon because you're in control with this game. Playing it will be very time consuming. Really consuming, but in a good way. It makes you feel like this game was worth the 50 cents I paid for it. But also, this is pretty much it. I don't really know how to make this entertaining to view. I mean, this is the game. I like this game for what it is. It's a really intricate beast, chock full of so much content for really not that many screens. The next game is Star Wars Droidworks, released for PC by Lucas Learning. Educational game. And it has no modern support, so we'll give it a shot. I couldn't even get the damn thing to come up. It wouldn't even let me install it. Well, this game has you playing as a rebel disguised as a Jawa. You build droids. Cute, I guess. I feel like there should be a rule or special condition for educational games. Not really sure if they should even really qualify or not, but I guess they're worth taking a peek at. Alright, let's go. We are back on the N64 with Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Oh, yes! I haven't played this one before, but the sequel on the GameCube, just you wait till we get to that one. Well, let's check out the original. This game did also come out on PC, and I thought about trying the PC version first because of Shadows, but the reviews seemed a little less favorable on the porting for this. So, just went with the N64 version. This was one of the earliest games to use the expansion pack, and it shows. This game looks, well, it just looks a lot better than Shadows, and it even controls better. Obviously, the Hoth section in Shadows played a huge role in inspiring this. This is very much a simpler flight simulator compared to the X-Wing series. The missions can get a little tricky though, especially when you have to protect ships and forget about them. You play as Luke mostly and Wedge, who have formed a new flight squadron, Rogue Squadron, following the destruction of the first Death Star. You start off fighting against the Empire and protecting others from Imperials. Then, an Imperial officer tries to join the rebels, causing the Empire to retaliate aggressively. The first few missions have you flying X-Wings and A-Wings. Hell, there's even a Naboo starfighter there. Yeah, they really thought that ship was gonna be a hot shit before the movie dropped. And some missions even have you on the speeders like the ones from Hoth. The second chapter also has an Imperial defector, one who is a native of Alderaan. Using her information, the rebels launched several attacks on Imperial locations. I found this particular mission quite annoying. You had to destroy these satellites before getting detected by the Imperials. Then this big-ass AT-AT destroys your allies, leaving you defenseless. There's also a two-parter where you have to free a bunch of rebels, including Wedge, who have been imprisoned by the Imperials on Kessel. You know, like the Run. After saving our allies, the rebels move their attention to a particular Imperial officer who is quite a thorn on their side. Moff Sirdan. Sirdan. Leading to several interesting levels that resort to protecting a lot of different stuff that sometimes I didn't realize I was supposed to be saving until after I blew them up. The mission with the back tanks was especially troublesome for me, not after going through all this effort to protect them and not dying from these annoying missiles, so that I save enough ships for the boss battle with Sirdan. There are lots of cool missions like this one where you have to blow up Imperial canisters, or tedious ones where you have to protect these stolen Imperial walkers, which means you have to play through the mission with a specific route. All of these lead to the climactic finale, playing as Wedge against the World Destroyer. This level actually takes place after Return of the Jedi. Kind of weird finale, you just destroy 3 of these guys and some of whatever variant of TIE fighters these are. Of course, a big thing with the game is the medal system. You go from bronze to gold based on several factors of your gameplay. Trying to get gold on all missions adds replayability, and I think after beating the missions, you're allowed to choose whatever craft you want. Here I used the Naboo starfighter on the first mission for gold. Collecting all the medals, or just using cheat codes, will unlock special secret missions like this one at Beggar's Canyon, where you race against the others. I thread the needle! I get that reference, like from the radio drama. Or the big one, the Trench Run, which will famously be the opening of the sequel. Yeah, it's still got some ways to go. While mildly stressful, I adored this game. I definitely think it's one of the best N64 games for sure. It was definitely one of the best selling. The controls, while not perfect, were miles ahead of Shadows of the Empire. This game is awesome and definitely worth checking out. It even got me more excited to revisit the sequel. Closing off 1998 was Star Wars: The Trilogy Arcade. Now, I unfortunately do not have $8,000 to spend on the arcade cabinet for this one. And it was exclusively an arcade game with no ports. And because of that, trying to get the thing to work on an emulator was not a fun process. But eventually, I did finally get it to work, and oh, this is incredible. In all fairness, even with the emulation, I feel like this game is still meant to be experienced on the arcade cabinet. The graphics, the sound design, everything is just perfect. It explores several different famous moments from the films, from the attack on the Death Star to the Battle of Hoth, both with flight and on-foot sections. But most of the game takes place on Return of the Jedi. You've got a Boba Fett boss, the speeder sequence, and then on-foot section, Darth Vader boss, and the second Death Star. This is undoubtedly my favorite arcade game, and really this might be one of my favorite Star Wars games ever made. It only takes about 20 minutes to beat it, and there's a lot of replayability. There's higher difficulties you can keep challenging yourself with and trying to get the highest scores, trying to do no damage, and it's just insanely fun and addicting. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, I played this thing about 6 or 7 times again after recording it for this video. It's so much fun. It is so much fun and it's so addicting. I gotta play it again. I gotta play it again. Now I want to end the first part of this journey with stopping right before the prequel era, since those games in that era really deserve its own video, and this one's getting pretty long already. There is one game that came out in 1999 though, before Phantom Menace, and that is Star Wars X-Wing Alliance. While this is technically the 4th game, fans treat it as the true sequel to TIE Fighter. The story follows Ace as Amin, a part of a family of traitors who join the Rebels. Pretty lengthy opening cutscene. This actually brings in a pretty interesting dynamic in the campaign, with Ace balancing his allegiance to his family and to the Rebel Alliance. Let's check the game out. And it crashed. Turns out this game doesn't like to be recorded. Go figure. Well, I wanted to play every game close to their original formats, at least a little bit, before looking at the remasters, but this one does not want to cooperate. So I had to put on this really popular mod patch, and considering the damn thing was 10 gigabytes, it better be... Oh, this is glorious. So not only is this game beautiful with or without the mods, I think this is my favorite of the X-Wing entries, and I know TIE Fighter is the fan favorite, but the gameplay in this one is just so much more high octane than the previous. The dogfights are more intense and fun, and the controls feel a little bit more responsive. And the story, I think, is the most compelling of the 4. There are 7 arcs and a prologue and an interlude, which has Ace joining the Rebel Alliance after they assist the Rebels on Hoth. This game covers the events of Empire Strikes Back, Shadows of the Empire with Dash Rendar, and ultimately ending on the Battle of the Second Death Star, which actually has you playing Lando on the Falcon. Again, it's kind of hard to judge this with the mod patch because this is just so phenomenal. The game looks so amazing, and it still does play like the previous X-Wings in terms of controls. I think the UI is a little bit better on this one, so not much is really lost, I think. From what I gather, many praise this patch as the ultimate way to experience this game. I wish all of them had these awesome patches. Well, TIE Fighter kind of does. This was just... I was awestruck. I was just floating in space taking in the sights. I almost felt like a kid playing this. With my headphones on, I was jerking my head around. TIE fighters flying overhead, trying to dodge them in real life. I was moving my whole body with the controller. Sound quality in this game was next level. The music was triumphant and appropriate. The dialogue was fun and snappy. X-Wing Alliance is an awesome game. I think one of the coolest Star Wars experiences I've ever had. And what an appropriate way to end the first part of the series, closing off the X-Wing series as we're moving on to the first of the prequel games. This felt like an appropriate send-off to the classics era, blowing up the second Death Star and closing the original trilogy.
What the hell is an aluminum falcon?
Let me clarify that the next part we will be playing all of the games coming out from '99 till around Disney's acquisition of Star Wars. So not just prequel-based games, but all the games that came out in the prequel era. And I'm definitely looking forward to that because that's going to be the most nostalgic era of games for me. I hope to see you all there. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you're not already, please subscribe as it really helps the channel out a lot. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.